Welcome to CBH. Today we're talking about Wolverine's Jellyroll haircut and its roots in comic history. We're going to start in the year 1982 with an iconic image of Frank Miller's cover to Wolverine Limited Series number 1. I think we can rally around this image as being fairly definitive in Wolverine's hairstyle that he has carried into modern times. We have the flared out edges, sideburns, and a very dominant widow's peak. When Wolverine appeared in Hulk 181 in 1974, he was wearing a mask, so we didn't get to see his face or hair until Uncanny X-Men 98 in 1976, depicted by one of my favorite creator artists, Dave Cockrum. Clearly he was intended to enjoy a good smoke, but that's neither here nor there. At the time, X-Men 98 answered the question of who was underneath Wolverine's mask. But where did his hairstyle come from? Where did Dave Cockrum get it from? That's tough to definitively answer without an interview, but he's unfortunately passed away, so we have to historically follow the trail and try to find out. A year earlier, in Atlas's Destructor number 3, 1975 by Steve Ditko, there is a character named Lobo, not the 1980s DC character, but a completely different character who has this same haircut, oddly enough with an X on his belt. This appears to be a coincidence, however, because before this issue, and before Dave Cockrum started working on the X-Men and Giant Size X-Men 1 1975, he worked on the Legion of Superheroes with inker Murphy Anderson for DC Comics, and one of the characters he worked on was Timberwolf. On the left shows Timberwolf's appearance in Superboy 172 1971 without any special hairdo and fairly generic. However, when Dave Cockrum got his hands on the character, he changed his hair into Timberwolf's new look in Superboy 197 1973. So Dave Cockrum brought this hair to two characters. So if Ditko used this hair independently and Cockrum introduced this hair independently, then where did that come from? Going back a little further, Dave Cockrum worked for Wally Wood on the newspaper comic strip Shattuck for a military newspaper in 1972. Cockrum portrayed the loner cowboy of Wood's strip with flared out dark hair, sideburns, but no widow's peak. The cowboy Shattuck was likely Wally Wood's design, who was a visually gifted genius in his own right. Before Shattuck, Wally Wood worked on his own Wolverine-type character named Annie-Man, which premiered in his independent comic Wit's End in 1967. So we have some classic Wolverine hair present in this Wally Wood character 9 years before X-Men 98 in 1976, with the flared-out hair and dominant widow's peak, with no sideburns though, but still a creative antecedent or ancestor to the later Wolverine. An interesting connection between Annie-Man and Wolverine is that they were both originally intended to be a different form of animal other than ape that evolved into a lethal biped humanoid. Dave Cockrum originally wanted Wolverine initially to be a mutated Wolverine similar to Annie-Man, but this was nixed by Marvel editorial, and Wolverine's origin has been retconned a lot of times since. Both Wally Wood's Annie-Man and Dave Cockrum's Wolverine also enjoyed tearing women's dresses off. Whoa there, tigers. As far as the 1975 Lobo character, Steve Ditko and Wally Wood worked together on a lot of non-Marvel work like Thunder Agent and Jungle Comics, and Ditko premiered in his Mr. A in Wit's End, so it's possible that could have connected into Lobo, but I think this hairstyle goes before that. This becomes evident in the 1964 sitcom The Munsters. Eddie Munster had a very dominant widow's peak as the Wolf Boy's son in this monstrous family, which premiered 3 years before Annie-Man. So where did he get this hair from? Was it from the 1959 Jellyroll haircut episode of It To Beaver? Considering there is no real wolf discussion in this episode, and it's a commentary more on Jellyroll haircuts of local greasers of the time, maybe they tried to make fun of greaser hair by giving it wolf features. But where did this wolf hair come from? It looks like the origin is from the 1935 film The Werewolf of London, which follows the trail of horror left by this human beast with a dominant widow's peak, dominant sideburns, and flared out hair on the sides. This has been a fun session of CBH. Every time we see Wolverine's hair, we should think of the 1935 film Werewolf in London, as well as Dave Cockrum and Wally Wood's contribution to the comic book version of characters like this. Cheers.